A man walks along the streets on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, heading toward the intersection of Broad Street and Wall Street. Holding his hand and keeping pace is his 9-year-old grandson. Young Daniel Frischberg is about to get a first-hand look at the New York Stock Exchange. He doesn't realize it yet, but his destiny is to be a major player in the world of finance. What he's learned over nearly 50 years, he'll teach you today, and it's all free of charge. There's a billionaire locked inside you. The key to freedom is information, the kind of information you find here on the Money Man Report. Now, here's the Money Man. Here's Dan Frischberg.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Money Man Report. I thank you all very much for joining me, and we're going to depart from what we usually do in order to have what I think is very, a very interesting conversation with an old friend of mine, Jose Domenico. He is not only a sophisticated investor, and many years ago took my highest form of instruction, a whole year of instruction, and trained as a professional investor. And I guess his only profession is investing his own money. He's not interested in doing it for you. But Jose was a top executive at one of the most well-known and respected corporations in the world for many years. And he accumulated a fortune, and rightly so, because he stayed with that company and accumulated equity in that company. But we had a discussion that I think would be good for the audience, and that is, we were talking about, I did a video about MGM and MGM Grand, and I was talking about the fact that Kirk Kerkorian originated that company and made himself very rich by being very smart and buying the rights to 80 acres of land on what is now the Las Vegas Strip. Paid only a couple of $100,000 for the rights. It was an option to buy that property for less than $1 million. He only paid a couple of $100,000. He ended up making $9 million on that deal, and that became the International Hotel and then became the MGM Grand. And he ended up making $16 billion of net worth by owning that hotel. Now, mainly he did this. He used a technique that we think is a very important one. And I was saying that I thought that using MGM Grand as a way to accumulate wealth was very smart. I said I was going to talk about the best real estate deal I knew of. And I was talking about how to accumulate the rights to purchase that stock with the rights to buy it at a price a little higher than it is now, but at a price much lower than it will be over the next couple of years, in my opinion. So, Jose, we had a discussion, and you questioned my thinking on that. Would you please talk about your concerns about that thesis as I just said it?
Well, Dan, I'm not qualified to question your opinions on these kind of topics, but
you're qualified to decide what is smart to do with your money, just like all the people listening to us.
Yes,
so
what I was trying to
this discussion.
Yes, sorry. What I was trying to express was that most investors today, you know, the average person like me out on the street is probably wondering, gee, how much higher can this market continue going, because it's been easy money. And the financial media just keeps beating up every day with someone saying, oh, we're expecting a 10 to 20% correction, which it's probably not going to come. So that's point number one. And, you know, if there's a correction, all stocks will come down. So does it really make sense to I was wondering if it makes sense to buy a 1 or 2 year leap on MGM. Okay, and I'll come back to that. And then what's been going on?
Long-term option, which I'm calling buying the rights to buy that stock. Leap is a correct jargon term that means a long-term option. And I'm thinking of it as a multi-year option, 2 years, 3 years. What I'm thinking about is not buying a 1 or 2 year option, but taking equity, taking the rights to buy that company. And I'm thinking of a 5-year position. Now, I can't buy a 5-year leap option because they don't exist. But my position is I don't know what that stock is going to do this year. What I do know is that it's going to be worth way more in 5 years than it is now, maybe in 3 years, maybe in 2 years, but definitely 5 years from now. Stock's
Right.
going to be the buildings, the hotel, the company is going to be worth much more than it is now. And I may have to roll that option forward once or twice in order to maintain that. But what I'm going to be able to do is to buy 10 times or 20 times as much of that equity as I would have been able to do if I used the same amount of cash. So
Right.
that was my plan. It was
Right.
not
And
guessing, but now you brought up the idea.
right.
I don't know what the stock market's going to do. We've had a big rally, and I don't know what the stock market's going to do in 6 months, a year, 2 years. And so, can I afford to buy a right to buy that stock?
Right.
Can I afford to do that, given that I don't know what the stock market's going to do?
And so what I see is that the analysts have been behind under forecasting the S&P earnings and revenue growth, and the reopening is really not even completed yet, and so they're playing catch up. And if you go start thinking about NGM and you go pull the analyst reports, it's not a pretty picture. It's kind of negative earnings. They may catch up to where they were on revenue and earnings in 2019. It might take to the first part of 2023. And what I think is that these analysts don't know anything because there's so much pent up demand in the population. All my friends are planning vacations. Okay. We want to get out of jail after being locked up 18 months. And so people are just dying to go back to places like MGM. So what I'm trying to say is that it's probably not going to take that much longer for them to get back to where they were on revenue and earnings in 2019 and beat those numbers. And then what's new is that they have the BetMGM business segment now, which is betting on sports games and so on.
Correct.
And they're already forecasting, MGM is forecasting $1 billion in revenue in 2022.
Yeah, they're making
And that
with,
segment, I'm
Buffalo
sorry?
Wild Wings and restaurants all over the country.
Right.
As gambling becomes legal,
Right.
they're getting the concession of running the gambling in those restaurant bars. We're going to stop for a quick break, give you a chance to breathe. There's a couple of messages, and especially for those radio programs that carry this program, we want to give them a chance to do the news and commercials. And then we're going to be right back with you.
Each week in his live video market and economy update offered to his inner circle, Dan Frischberg delivers the in-depth, professional version of his famous Market X-ray report, live and interactive. Now that means you get to ask all the questions you want. And if you can't make the live meeting, you can watch the report on demand. Then email your questions in and Dan will email the answers back or include them in the next live report. Week in and week out, Dan brings you the ideas and specific stock picks from his friends, the people you see on TV and read about in the papers. You'll see what they're buying, how they're hedging, and when they're taking money off the table. At last, you'll get to see how the insiders negotiate the institutional macro bonds that billionaires on Wall Street rely on, the ones almost everyone else never even heard of. When you become an Inner Circle member, Dan will share with you his lifetime of experience and guide you to the best teachers, the best stock pickers, the best option strategists. And you'll be invited to exclusive working vacations in beautiful locations for the Inner Circle only, where you'll rub elbows with some of the most famous investors on Wall Street. So, how do you value the lifetime of skill and experience of a top investor on a mission to share it all with you and help you become one of the few winners? If you've been listening to Dan for a few years, he's likely already made you tons of money, or even more important, saved you from losing a fortune. Now, there are limits to the capacity of the online video sessions, but right now, for a limited time, Dan's offering you the position of charter subscriber, get this, for less than the price of a cup of coffee a day. For all the info or to subscribe, just simply click on themoneyman.com. Themoneyman.com.
You're tuned in to the Money Man Report with your host, TV and radio money man, Dan Frischberg. For more information about everything we're talking about, go to themoneyman.com right now. That's themoneyman.com.
Welcome back to themoneyman.com. Thanks very much for sticking around. I want to continue this story, so we'll continue right now.
And so I took a look at that, and I think the opportunity in that segment is understated, and I could easily see a present value value creation of $50 a share minimum today if you were to take the present value for the next 5 or 6 years. And it's really an opportunity, I think, that you can go out. And I think we were talking about a $45 stock price today, thereabouts, buying a 12-month option or a 2-year option for, I think, $1.35 a share, and you buy 100 shares per contract. So we were talking about investing $10,000, which, if I recall, will let you control 7,400 shares of the stock.
Right.
And
in other words, hundreds of thousands of dollars of that company,
right,
is working for you now.
Yeah,
Even though you don't have the equity, you don't have what we call stock, so you can't vote. They don't give you a dividend, but you have a call. You have the right to own that stock at a price that's a fixed price. And when the stock is much more expensive than that,
right,
you're going to have the right to buy. If the stock goes to 100 and you have the right to own the stock, to buy the stock at 60, that means it automatically, there's $40 of intrinsic value
right
in that, and you might have only paid $5 for
right.
that equity, or $3.
So what I see, Dan, is a reasonable opportunity, barring a recession and barring the stock market crashing, where you can make $400,000 or $500,000 on a $10,000 investment.
I couldn't agree more. And the only thing that I would like to take issue with, because your reasoning is correct, in my opinion, but here's the thing. This stock market has cost people so much money because it's organized as a stock market, because they think it's a stock market. They think it's a thing, a casino, or a place. Here's what that is, and I've been at it all my life. It's a building where companies come to get partners and get people to raise money. Some of those companies, it really was just used to be they met a bunch of people under a buttonwood tree, and they would have an auction for who wants to buy into this company or that company. Then they got nice infrastructure and all kinds of electronics. But people think that their job is to guess what everybody else is going to do, and so they think of it as a market. And I don't think, I think the reason, I have always asked the question that the guy asked me when I was a kid on the New York Stock Exchange, and that is, how is it possible that this thing's been going up for 150 years, and where are all the rich people? None of these people have any money. How is that possible? And the answer is because they think that the game is for them to guess what the market is going to do, quote, the market, rather than investing in a specific company that they know and understand, and know that that company is going to, sooner or later, that its stock price is going to reflect how much money does that company make in the long run for its owners. And what it's going to do, they think the goal is to buy it when it goes up and then sell it when it goes down. And if there's a correction, they want to get rid of it. And if I'm talking about buying the right to own equity in a company that I know is going to be worth way, way more money. Those analysts are thinking, why do they think 6 months ahead or a year ahead? Because they work for a brokerage firm. The brokerage firm wants you as a customer. They want you to pay them to give you financial services, which is advice. And if they don't get it right in 3 months, you're going to leave. So for them, being correct about a company that's going to be worth a lot more money in 3, 4, 5 years has zero value to them. They're going to be fired a long time before that, they feel. And the reason is because they think you and I are too stupid to have a strategy where we buy into a company and then it becomes worth more money and then we end up owning a lot of equity. They think we're too dumb to do that. They think it's about guessing where the market is going to go. And they may not really believe, if you look at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch, that isn't what they do with their money. What they do with their money is they find people with good ideas. They help them go public. They take positions in companies that they hold for years and years and years. They don't try to guess. They don't do that. That's what they think they have to do in order to keep you paying them to give advice, because they think if the advice isn't right in 2 months, you're going to quit. If it's a year, that's it. They think you're just too dumb to have an idea of buying a company a few years from now. And that's why most of what they say is irrelevant. And most of the people who listen to them end up losing money because they think, God, if that's what Goldman Sachs thinks is right, it must be right. And so I must try to guess what this market's going to do in the next few months. And what I said was, this company, MGM, owns a lot of properties in Las Vegas that are prime properties on the Strip. They own a lot of properties in Macau where money laundering is a great industry and Chinese people come and tourists come. They own properties in Singapore. Don't forget to check themoneyman.com because there is a great webinar that you can watch for free and sign up for it there on our website. That's themoneyman.com, www.themoneyman.com.
You've been listening to the sound of your money growing. This has been the Money Man Report with your host, radio and TV money man, Dan Frischberg. Hear it again every weekday morning here on Bradenton's WWPR, broadcasting worldwide. It's Better Living Radio.